Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander Score Studio. Welcome to the show. So, on this episode, I'm going to be talking about one of the newest, most exclusivist, most awesomest, most hard to gettest. I guess that's exclusive. I just repeated that. Regardless, it's a really interesting brand new card, a brand new Heroes of the Realm card that you and I will probably never physically see in person. Unless you either are willing to fork over a ton of money, or if you're, an employee of Wizards that happens to get this. And if you are, hi, how's it going? Anyways, yeah. Heroes of the Realm, if you don't know what it is basically cards that Wizards gives out as gifts, to those who are working at Wizards in various roles. And so that's why if you are one of those people, you are very lucky to get one. And if you are not, well, in order to play with one, you're going to have to fork over a lot of money because the supply of these cards is incredibly low. And yeah, the prices on these can get quite high. That being said, if you do want to potentially build around this card, well, first up, ask your playgroup first. And then secondly, just proxy it because, you can definitely do that as well. And Wizards definitely encourages proxying, right? Because of, the MTG 30th anniversary. They love proxying. Anyways, Arteeoh Dread Scavenger, a 3/3 legendary artifact creature robot with flying and death touch that costs 1 black, green, blue. When it deals combat damage to a player, you may exchange control of 2 other artifacts. When you do, create a token that's a copy of target artifact you control, except it's a 1/1 green scroll creature in addition to its other colors and types. And I probably should have mentioned, I switched over to the MTG.design version of this just because it's a little bit cleaner. Yeah, the picture wasn't all that bad, actually. Regardless, a very interesting brand new commander. That's right, it does say legendary on it. That is quite unique. Basically, hey, I'm going to swing through at you. Most likely going to hit you again because guys have flying. And that's usually, enough evasion to get through on at least one of your opponents. And it's also got death touch. So even if the opponent does have a flyer, if it's a valuable flyer, they're probably going to say, yeah, go on through. And of course, we'll talk about some other ways, that you can help out with this commander. Ways that you can get it through. But yeah, when you do hit a player, that's when the real fun starts. Switching control of 2 other target artifacts. And that can, of course, be a giant thing. You're like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll give you this, a tiny mana rock or whatnot, and I'll take your Blightsteel Colossus or whatnot. So, yeah, you can do some really big things with that. Now, when you are exchanging control of those artifacts, you're also making a token copy of an artifact that you don't control. Very specifically, it has to be one that you don't control. You can kind of, set yourself up to kind of steal your next thing in a way if you want to really do that. Except the token copy is just a 1/1 squirrel. So, yeah, that's actually probably a, worse thing, essentially, for the most part. Which is good because, again, if you're actually going to be exchanging, this 1/1 squirrel version of, your opponent's artifact, you can be like, okay, yeah, you just take this little squirrel version of it, and I'll take the real one, essentially. So, yeah, you can just keep kind of exchanging things. You can keep, getting more and more value out of this, stealing your opponent's better artifacts, giving them their worse artifacts, If you're going to be able to make, maybe treasure tokens, if you're going to make, clue tokens, food tokens, you, of course, can, give those tokens to your opponents in exchange for actual, cards that have, more of an impact. Not that, treasures don't have an impact, they definitely do. But, again, exchanging a treasure for, again, the example, Blightsteel Colossus, which, they might not have one, but they might. If they do, yeah, that's a great trade for you. But yeah, being able to trade up for a much better artifact can be huge with this. Now, on this episode, again, I will reiterate again, if you want to build around this brand new commander, first, ask your playgroup or those LGS if they're okay with that. Second, proxy it most likely, unless you want to spend a couple $100, because these, again, can be very expensive, these Heroes of the Realm cards. Now, if you get the approval of your group and you've either purchased one of these or actually proxied it, great. Next up, let's talk about some budget buys and some pricier picks. That's right, cards that are within my budget and then cards that are slightly outside of my budget or much more outside of my budget. But yeah, we'll talk about some cards that you can consider for this brand new commander. First up, let's talk about cards like Liquid Metal Coating and Liquid Metal Torque. Liquid Metal Coating is an artifact that has tap target permanent becomes an artifact in addition to other types until end of turn. This makes it so that any of your opponent's permanents, every single one of them, can become an artifact, and that means none of them are safe. Similarly, Liquid Metal Torque is an artifact that can tap for 2. Sorry, tap for 1. It costs 2. There we go. Tap target non-land permanent becomes an artifact of other types until end of turn. The only difference between these two is this is non-land. So yeah, you can't just steal your opponent's, Gaia's Cradle, essentially. Liquid Metal Coating, you could. Liquid Metal Torque, you cannot. Still, in the vast majority of circumstances, you're going to be able to steal what you want to steal. And I guess I shouldn't say steal, right? You're exchanging. You're giving your opponent some value. So, yeah, see, it's a fair trade, right? Because I'm going to be giving you my Steel Golem. How about a Steel Golem? You've always wanted a Steel Golem, haven't you? Creature-based deck. Steel Golem, a 3/4 Golem that costs 3. You can't play creature spells. So, hey, you put it out, and it's a downside for you, obviously. But then as soon as you get your commander through, you're like, you know what, let's just switch those. You take this, I'll take your much better artifact. There you go. And yeah, then they're stuck not being able to play creature spells. Of course, there are other of these, negative impact, artifacts that you can give out to your opponents. Like, a Grid Monitor. Can't play creature spells either. Ouch. That definitely can hurt again, especially, the creature-based decks out there, and can really slow them down. Next up, let's talk about some other cards you might want to consider. Again, building a lot of artifacts into this deck can be very impactful because, yeah, you want to make sure that you have options on what you're going to be exchanging. Now, sometimes you might be exchanging something valuable, but you're going to be exchanging it for something much better. Regardless, Swiftfoot Boots is one that can help you out in a lot of circumstances. Equipped creature is hexproof and haste. Yeah, I mean, giving your commander hexproof, of course, is great. Being able to protect it. And haste, again, your commander has a combat damage trigger. Being able to swing with it right away can be huge. Moving on, Prowler's Helm. Equipped creature can't be blocked except by walls. Yeah, I mean, again, your commander does have flying, so usually that's enough to get through in the vast majority of situations. But just in case you might be playing against a bunch of flyers, you might want to have other ways to get your commander through as well. And Prowler's Helm, again, can be a great one to just utilize. And you know what? Again, if you do need to exchange that with an opponent, you probably can. If you want to get rid of that to get something much better, give them that, and maybe it's a opponent that doesn't really have, a lot of big creatures in that deck or whatnot. Or maybe you make a deal with that player and, maybe you say, okay, hey, I'll give you this instead of that one, and maybe you attack other players with it instead. Anyways, there are a lot of good options for cards when it comes to this commander, a lot of good budget buys. And again, I probably should have mentioned the budget buys are less than $1. Those are cards that are within my budget. And then also cards that are outside of my budget. Let's go through the pricier picks, cards that are more than $1. And let's go with Mycosynth Lattice to start. Yeah, that is well outside of my budget. All permanents are artifacts of other types. All cards are on the battlefield. Spells and permanents are colorless. Players may spend mana or mana of any color. Yeah, Mycosynth Lattice is basically, for this deck's purposes, hey, let's make everything into an artifact. Therefore, everything is exchangeable. I mean, I was going to say stealable, but yeah, again, you were exchanging. You were not stealing, right? You're exchanging. So anything that your opponent has is up for grabs. So yeah. Mycosynth Lattice, again, kind of like that Liquid Metal Coating, Liquid Metal Torque, but in a massive way. And of course, there are other implications with turning everything into artifacts. There are certain combos that work with this too. That's beside the point. We're just talking about, exchanging things at this point. And speaking of exchanging things, yeah, Bronze Bombshell is a really funny card to exchange. Whenever a player other than Bronze Bombshell's owner controls it, that player sacrifices it. If the player does, Bronze Bombshell deals 7 damage to them. Basically, hey, get this out. Say, you know what, I'm going to come in through and hit that player, and then, hey, you know what, I will give you the Bronze Bombshell in exchange for this. Oh no, the Bronze Bombshell exploded! I'm so sorry! Not really. Anyway, 7 damage, so yeah, just a really good thing, again, kind of like those Grid Monitor type cards to just give an opponent. And of course, an artifact deck, you probably have some ways to recur things, so you can just keep getting this back out and just keep exchanging it for more and more value. So that can be quite fun. Speaking of fun, doubling up on your trigger can be massive. Stronic Resonator, Liftform Engine come to mind. Stronic Resonator, pay 2, tap, copy target triggered ability. You control, you choose targets for the copy. Again, the triggered ability happens when your commander hits an opponent. So yeah, just pay that extra 2. Copy it again, exchange another thing, get another scroll token. Yeah, this can just kind of really speed up your process essentially and say, hey, instead of just getting, 1 exchange per turn, we are getting 2. And I guess I should mention extra turns would obviously work as well. You don't really have extra combat spells in these colors, but of course, extra turns is basically, hey, here's an extra combat as well. Lithiform Engine. Pay 2, tap, copy target activate triggered ability control. Basically the same thing as the Resonator. Pay 3, tap, copy target instant sorcery spell. Pay 4, tap, copy target permanent spell you control. So yeah, the first one obviously is very relevant too. The other two are very relevant as well. I mean, the last one, if you want to just make a token copy of one of your artifacts so you have kind of more fodder essentially to utilize, yeah, go for it and do that. And yeah, utilize that to exchange. I mean, there are some really big plays, of course, that you can make with this commander. Speaking of big plays, yeah, I mean, basically anytime a commander mentions making a token and I don't bring up cards like, Doubling Season, Primal Vigor, Peril of Lives, I get yelled at in the comments below. So yeah, Doubling Season, of course, an incredible card, incredibly expensive card for a reason. Essentially doubles up your tokens, doubles up your counters as well. But yeah, in this case, doubling up your tokens can be massive, making twice as many of those, 1/1 squirrel artifact copies, essentially. So yeah, basically doubling up your tokens, of course, is a good thing. Can give you even more value. And yeah, you can have some really big plays with basically any of those cards. Again, when it comes to doubling, basically all of them do pretty much the exact same thing. Regardless, now, when it comes to my final thoughts on this card, yeah, I think it's a pretty interesting design. Again, I do think it is a card that I probably will never physically see in person. I might see a proxy version of it. And yeah, I think it's a pretty exciting commander that players, definitely could utilize a lot of fun cards and build around. Again, if you are planning on building around it, I urge you again, please ask your playgroup first. Ask those at your LGS if they're okay with playing against this. And of course, yeah, I mean, if you don't want to pay however many $100 to actually get this card that is in such low supply, again, this exclusive card, just proxy it. Wizards is definitely okay with proxying again, because yeah, MGG 30th basically proved that, right? So yeah, if you are interested in it, make sure you check out my link in the description below. That's got all the cards I talked about on this episode. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.